If you had asked my parents who I was, they would have said, a failure, a dropout, a disappointment. The daughter who threw away a college scholarship like it was yesterday's trash. That's what they said. Every time I dared to breathe around, them. Every time I got a phone call, every time I showed up for a family dinner, or worse, didn't show up. Because apparently, my absence was a personal insult to their perfectly curated social status. But here's the juicy part. They didn't know a damn thing about what I was really doing. I dropped out of college. Sure, on paper. I walked out of those halls and into nowhere, at least according to their judgmental eyes. The tears I cried when I told them? Oh, they thought it was because I'd failed. They didn't know I was fighting for my life. A life that would soon include stars, planets, and a future they could never imagine. And this story? It starts with their humiliation and ignorance, and ends with me owning my power, in ways they'd never believe. You see, my parents had this perfect fantasy about me. Ivy League, PhD, white picket fence. Instead, I took the first left out of that fantasy and vanished. They never asked why. No one did. At the time, I wasn't ready to tell them, or anyone, the truth. Because the truth was bigger than anything they had ever dreamed for me. The psych. Morning, I dropped out. I didn't go home. Instead, I caught a flight, yes, with a one-way ticket, to Tokyo, Japan. I arrived with nothing but a small suitcase, a heart pounding with nerves, and a mind buzzing with possibility. You see, I had been invited by NASA. Not some side gig, not a vague internship, but a full-fledged 5-year training program for Mars, colonization. Mars, as in the red planet. I know what you're thinking. How does a college dropout get invited to NASA's Mars training program? Good question, and one I'll get to eventually. But first, let me rewind a bit. I was always the quiet kid. Not because I was shy, I am sarcastic enough for 5 people, but because I kept my wildest dreams to myself. While my classmates were busy memorizing formulas or cramming for finals, I was sneaking into online astrophysics forums, chatting with engineers and astronauts in the making, learning what it took to be part of the future. It was during one of those late-night research sessions that I stumbled upon a secret call from NASA, a recruitment program looking for bright minds with unique skill sets. They wanted not just textbook geniuses, but creative problem solvers, people who thought outside the box. I sent in an application on a whim, expecting silence or rejection. Instead, I got a response. The interview was grueling. I was grilled on everything: science, psychology, survival skills, even Japanese language proficiency. You don't get a Mars training program without crossing some brutal hoops. But I aced it. And before I knew it, I was on a plane to Japan, leaving behind my old life and the parents who never believed in me. Living in Japan was intense. The training was more than physical. It was mental, emotional, and utterly transformative. We learned how to grow food in hostile environments, survive with limited oxygen, repair spacecraft under pressure, and adapt to living in confined spaces. For months on end, we built mock Mars habitats. We simulated storms. We trained in zero-gravity labs. Most days I felt like I was on the brink of breaking, but I never did. Back home, my parents were drowning in their own assumptions. They told their friends I had lost my way, that I was wasting my potential. They even sent me texts begging me to come back. I ignored them, because I was too busy training for a mission that would change everything. Now, fast forward 5 years. I'm back in the States. Or rather, arriving. Jet-lagged, exhausted, but glowing with pride and an offer letter that would silence any doubter. Except, of course, my parents. They still thought I was that loser who couldn't make it in college until that fateful night. That night, the world watched live as the President of the United States stepped up to the podium on national television. He spoke about the future, about courage, innovation, and the heroes who would lead humanity's first step toward Mars. And then, he named me, Jessica Williams, NASA's lead candidate for the Mars colonization mission. The camera zoomed in on my face, a face they thought was invisible, and my parents? They were watching. Speechless, humiliated, because their dropout daughter was about to be a global icon. That was the moment I realized. My silence, their doubt, their insults. All of it was fuel. Fuel for a fire that had been quietly burning for years. And now? Now it was time for payback. But payback, of course, had to be clever. Because humiliating them in front of their friends was just the appetizer. The real meal? Well, you'll have to wait for that. Because a queen's revenge is always slow-cooked. So, here I am, back from the stars, armed with knowledge, experience, and a future they never saw coming. The girl who threw away college, she's about to throw their perfect little world into chaos. So there I was, back on U.S. soil, the prodigal dropout, or so my parents thought. Except I wasn't just back. I was back, with a 5-year resume that included surviving mock Mars storms, zero-G labs, Japanese language immersion, and a glowing recommendation from NASA itself. If my parents expected me to crawl back and beg forgiveness, they were about to get the shock of their lives. Landing at the airport was like stepping into a completely different universe. The media circus was waiting, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions, and the occasional overly enthusiastic fan holding a Welcome Home Mars Hero sign. I smiled, just a little, more like a smirk. Because this was my moment, and I planned to savor every second of their stunned silence when they realized I was more than their college dropout. My phone buzzed nonstop with congratulations, from colleagues, old friends who never gave up on me, even random strangers. But what I wasn't prepared for was the sheer volume of hate from the family group chat. Mom: Jessica, why didn't you call? We've been worried sick. Dad: come home. We can fix this. Mom: you owe us an explanation. Dad: is this some kind of joke? NASA? Really? Yes. The classic parental mix of guilt-tripping and disbelief. I almost laughed out loud. Almost. But I had better plans than playing their guilt game. Instead, I sat back, letting their texts pile up like a mountain of desperate apologies and accusations. You see, I had a plan. Not just to bask in their shock, but to make sure they never, ever got away with how they treated me. They had humiliated me for years. The dropout daughter, the failure, the black sheep. Now it was my turn to rewrite the script. I booked a fancy penthouse downtown for the week, a little celebration for surviving 5 years of intense training and 5 years of parental nonsense. The moment they heard, their jaws dropped again. You're staying where? Alone? Oh, sweet, sweet ignorance. I hosted a small welcome party, mostly people from the NASA program, journalists, and a few new friends from the tech world. Word spread fast. So did invitations. And then, I did something deliciously strategic. I sent my parents a personal invitation. They hesitated. For days. Their egos battling the thought of showing up to a party thrown by the daughter they wrote off. Finally, my mom broke. She showed up with a fake smile plastered on her face, dragging my father behind her like a reluctant kid in detention. The moment they stepped into the room, the atmosphere shifted. Conversations stopped, glances exchanged, whispers circulated. There I was, center stage, the woman they tried to erase, standing tall in a sleek dress, holding a glass of champagne, the very image of success and defiance. My mom's smile was strained. My dad's jaw was tight. They tried to mingle, to pretend like they belonged. But everyone could see the truth. I made sure to introduce them to the NASA director, who casually mentioned the details of my training, the mission, the technology I helped develop. Their faces went pale, especially when the press cornered them for a statement. "Are you proud of Jessica?" a reporter asked, smirking. They stammered. I sipped my champagne and watched the show. It was poetry. But the real fun began the next morning. I had arranged for an exclusive interview with a major news network. The story was about the future of space travel, and of course it featured me, the dropout, who became a pioneer. My parents, predictably, were watching the broadcast. When the anchor mentioned my name, my face filled the screen. The camera zoomed in on my confident smile. Then, the president's congratulatory message played again, reminding the world who I really was. My parents sat frozen. My mom's phone slipped from her hand. My dad's mouth opened and closed like a fish. For once, they couldn't say anything. That silence was sweeter than any victory speech. But the story doesn't end there. No, that was just the appetizer. Over the next few days, I made subtle moves to reclaim my narrative. I spoke at conferences. I was invited to tech panels. I even received a book deal offer to write about my Mars training experience. My parents tried to keep up, posting vague, half-hearted updates on their social media. So proud of Jessica, but everyone could smell the forced nature of it. Then came the invitation that changed everything. A prestigious gala honoring American pioneers and innovators. Guessing me. Who was the guest of honor? Yup, me. This gala was the perfect stage, not just to shine, but to deliver the final act of my long-awaited revenge. I arrived in a stunning gown. Photographers swarmed, flashes popped. And there, amidst the glittering crowd of high society, my parents sat, stunned, uncomfortable, out of place. When it was my turn to speak, I took the microphone with a confident smile. "Good evening," I began. 5 years ago, I was called a dropout, a failure, a shame to my family. The crowd gasped. Well, I hoped so. But today, I stand here as proof that sometimes the best way to prove people wrong is to do exactly what they said you couldn't. I paused. I spent 5 years training with NASA in Japan, preparing for the most challenging mission humanity has ever faced, the colonization of Mars. Murmurs filled the room. And while my parents believed I was lost, I was exactly where I was supposed to be, breaking barriers, dreaming big, and changing the future. Their faces were crimson. The crowd cheered. And to my parents, thank you for your concern. It motivated me more than you'll ever know. I smiled wider than I had in years. The next day, the news headlines read, From Dropout to Space Pioneer, Jessica Williams' journey to Mars. My parents? They disappeared from social media for weeks. Revenge, I realized, wasn't about destruction. It was about transformation. And now that the world knew my truth, there was no turning back. After the gala, the honeymoon phase was over. Sure, I'd stolen the spotlight and redefined my narrative, but the real test was just beginning. Because humiliation cuts deep, especially when it festers in the hearts of people who once held your life in their hands. My parents? Oh, they weren't just embarrassed. They were furious. The kind of furious that makes people do stupid things. And I was about to watch the show from the best seat in the house. The week after the gala, the calls and texts from my parents stopped. Completely. No apologies. No, we're proud of you now. Just radio silence. It was almost satisfying. Almost. I mean, they didn't have the guts to face me, but I knew they were boiling inside. Then the whisper campaign started. I began hearing about it from old friends, former classmates, even the barista at my local coffee shop. Is it true what they say about you, Jessica? Did NASA really send you to Japan, or is this some kind of scam? Your parents told everyone you're making it all up. Classic denial. Classic desperation. So, I did what any reasonable Mars pioneer would do. I went nuclear. I invited a top investigative journalist to do a full profile on me, access to NASA records, my training logs, even interviews with the program director in Japan. The resulting piece? Explosive. It not only confirmed my story, but also revealed some behind-the-scenes drama, like how my parents had been informed early on about the opportunity, but chose to ignore it, dismissing my ambitions as childish nonsense. The article went viral. Social media exploded. My parents? Trapped between public humiliation and private rage. One afternoon, I received a voicemail from my mother. Her voice was trembling, coated with a mixture of anger and desperation. Jessica, please. Can we talk? We want to understand. We didn't know. I listened, amused. Did they really think I would just forgive and forget after years of belittling? Nope. Instead, I crafted my reply carefully. I told them I was open to talking, but only on my terms. That meant a dinner. At my place. No audience. No theatrics. Just a real conversation. The night of the dinner, I made sure everything was perfect. The table was set with my favorite Japanese dishes, a nod to my years in Tokyo. The atmosphere was calm, but the tension? Palpable. When they arrived, their faces were masks of forced smiles and hidden resentment. Jessica, my father started stiffly. We didn't mean to hurt you. Really? I interrupted. Because your definition of not hurting me looked a lot like humiliation, abandonment, and endless judgment. They shifted uncomfortably. My mother tried to salvage the moment. We just wanted what was best for you. I laughed. A short, bitter laugh. What you wanted was what made you comfortable. Not me. For a moment, silence reigned. Then, the cracks began to show. My mother's voice broke. I was scared. This whole NASA thing was so big. It was hard to accept. My father nodded slowly. I didn't know how to handle it. I thought you were throwing everything away. I leaned back, watching them unravel. Years of pain pouring out in hesitant confessions. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. I needed them to understand the price I paid. So I shared stories from Japan. The isolation, the grueling training, the moments when I wanted to quit but didn't. How I battled loneliness and doubt every day. How I carried their disapproval like a heavy suit of armor. By the end of the night, their eyes were wet. Not just with regret, but with the realization that they had almost lost me. Not because I wasn't capable, but because they couldn't see beyond their own fears. Still, I wasn't ready to give them the satisfaction of reconciliation. Instead, I left them with a final thought. Trust isn't built overnight. You lost it a long time ago. They nodded silently, the weight of those words sinking in. Days passed. No calls, no texts, just the quiet hum of life moving forward. And then, just when I thought the worst was behind me, the unexpected happened. My father showed up at my door, alone, looking older, worn down by weeks of internal battle. "I want to try," he said simply. I studied him. Was this real, or just another act? I decided to test him. "Prove it," I said. He nodded. And for the first time in years, we talked. Really talked. About expectations, disappointments, love, and fear. It wasn't perfect. Far from it. But it was a start. Meanwhile, life outside the family drama was exploding. NASA announced the official Mars mission date, and I was on the team. Training ramped up. Public attention intensified. I was suddenly a symbol, a pioneer, a woman who defied every expectation. And with every success, the sting of my past grew fainter. But as the mission drew closer, a new challenge emerged. Jealousy. Not from strangers, not even from the media, from within NASA. Some colleagues whispered, doubts, questioned my credentials, suggested I got the spot because of a PR stunt. It stung. But I was no stranger to adversity. I doubled down. I worked harder, proved every doubter wrong, because being a pioneer isn't just about science. It's about resilience. And I had that in spades. But the real test, that was still to come. Because when you rise from the ashes of betrayal and humiliation, the world expects you to be perfect. And perfection? Well, that's just the mask. I thought once I landed on Mars, the story would be over. The past behind me. The future bright. Ha! How naive. Success is a double-edged sword, especially when it's forced onto you like a spotlight in a dark room. After the mission announcement, my life became a circus. Press conferences, interviews, public appearances. I was the poster girl for NASA's new era. But here's the twist. The higher you climb, the more people want to pull you down. I quickly learned that the space program wasn't just about science. It was about politics, egos, and backstabbing rivalries dressed in lab coats. One morning, as I sipped my coffee, I got an email from an unknown sender. Subject: The truth you can't hide. Curious, I opened it. Inside, a dossier.photos, documents, transcripts. The claim that my Mars training was a sham, that I wasn't qualified, that the entire program was a PR stunt. And I was the pawn. I laughed. Sure, I wasn't perfect, but these accusations were ridiculous. Still, the damage was done. Whispers started to spread. Doubt crept into the minds of some team members. I realized that to survive, I had to fight fire with fire. So I dug deeper. I found the source. A jealous senior scientist who felt threatened by my rapid rise. I started collecting my own evidence, performance reviews, training logs, even emails praising my work. When the accusations escalated, I went public. I held a press conference. I laid everything bare. The media ate it up. My enemies? Exposed. But the fight wasn't just external. Inside NASA, things got colder. I could feel eyes watching me, waiting for me to fail. One night, after a grueling training session, I found my locker vandalized, my belongings scattered. A note. Not, "Welcome here." Instead of breaking me, it fueled me. I reported it, of course. Security was tight after that, but the message was clear. Still, I refused to be intimidated. Then came the final test, the simulation mission. A grueling 72-hour ordeal, designed to push us to our limits. My team was a mix of veterans and rookies, all brilliant, but with their own agendas. At first, everything went smoothly. We executed complex tasks, solved problems. But then, the sabotage started. Equipment malfunctioning, communications dropping. I suspected someone was behind it. Tensions skyrocketed. Trust evaporated. I confronted my teammates one by one. No one confessed. The sabotage almost cost us the simulation, but we pulled through. Afterward, I demanded an investigation. It turned out the saboteur was the same scientist who sent me the dossier. He was removed from the program. But the scars remained. That experience taught me that the real mission was surviving the human element. Meanwhile, back home, the media frenzy about my parents had quieted. I had hoped for reconciliation, but old wounds don't heal overnight. One afternoon, I received an unexpected visitor. My mother. She looked tired, different. She said she wanted to apologize, to really apologize. I listened. She admitted how wrong she'd been, how scared she was of losing me. For a moment, I felt something soft stir inside, but I kept my guard up. Forgiveness was a luxury I couldn't afford. Still, I invited her to watch my upcoming Mars launch broadcast. The day of the launch, the world watched. My parents sat in the audience, silent. As the rocket soared, I caught their eyes. Pride, regret, maybe both. After the launch, my phone buzzed. A message from my father. "Thank you for not giving up on us." I smirked. Maybe victory wasn't just about space travel. Maybe it was about navigating the gravity of family. But the story wasn't finished. Because success always comes with a price, and mine was about to be paid. So here I am. Mars is no longer just a distant dream. It's my reality. But before I get to the part where I plant the flag and claim my spot among the stars, let me tell you about the sweet, sweet finale. You know how they say revenge is a dish best served cold? Well, I prefer mine with a side of sarcasm and a splash of public humiliation. After years of being dismissed, ignored, and publicly shamed by the very people who were supposed to support me, I finally had the power, and I used it. Remember that. Senior scientist? The one who tried to sabotage my training, send dirt to the press, and destroy my career? Yeah. Let's call him Dr. Ego. Dr. Ego was arrogant, entitled, and convinced the world owed him a place in the spotlight. But here's the kicker. NASA has a strict policy about data security and research ethics. Guess who violated those rules trying to leak confidential info? That's right. Dr. Ego. Once the investigation uncovered his transgressions, it wasn't just a slap on the wrist. He got fired, and because NASA is big on transparency, they made the whole thing public. But I didn't stop there. I arranged for a feature story highlighting the obstacles I faced, including a detailed account of Dr. Ego's sabotage attempts. The story went viral. Social media exploded with support. Memes, hashtags, you name it. Jessica Mars Queen. Meanwhile, Dr. Ego's reputation was in tatters. But my parents? My dear parents. Remember how they finally reached out, scared and sorry? Well, let's just say I gave them a front row seat to their own little public meltdown. I leaked the story of their initial rejection and humiliation to a major news outlet. The headline? NASA pioneer's parents admit they thought she was a failure. It hit the internet like a meteor. My parents' social circles shrank overnight. Old friends whispered. Neighbors gossiped. They were forced to answer questions they never wanted to face. And just when they thought they could retreat to silence, I posted a series of photos on my verified social media account. Pictures of me training in Japan, working late nights, overcoming every challenge. Caption: For those who doubted me, for those who humiliated me, this is what you missed. The backlash was swift. My parents tried to defend themselves, but their words sounded hollow. Public opinion was firmly on my side. The final twist? NASA appointed me as the official ambassador for their new Mars initiative. That meant media interviews, TED Talks, and yes, invitations to the most exclusive events. Meanwhile, my parents watched from the sidelines. No apologies would erase the years lost. No words could undo the pain. But I wasn't interested in forgiveness. I was interested in respect. And I earned it. Now, as I prepare for the mission that will change humanity's future, I do it with the confidence of someone who's faced the worst. Abandonment, doubt, sabotage, and came out on top. Mars, here I come,